Did you really think I'd forget? Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Wizarding Wiz. Today I will be doing part 2 of my Where Are They Now series. At least that's what I think I was calling it. It's been a little while. I know you thought I forgot, or maybe you hoped I forgot, and I didn't forget. And I had other ideas I wanted to put out there in between. And this part of the series actually isn't all that exciting, but we're going to cover it anyway because we already started it, so we might as well. So this part of the series takes place when Harry and us take our first step into the wizarding world. In Harry's case, rejoining the wizarding world. For us, actually entering it for the very first time. I'm talking, of course, about when Hagrid takes Harry to Diagon Alley and they enter through the Leaky Cauldron. Now, when we enter the Leaky Cauldron, Harry is swarmed almost immediately by dozens of people. There's Diddless Diggle, who we see later in the book series. There's Professor Quirrell, who we actually see later in the book. And, of course, there is the ever-charming Doris Crockford. Now, we know what happens to some of the other witches and wizards that we meet. Diddless Diggle, like I just mentioned, and Professor Quirrell, like I just mentioned. Even Tom, the barman, the innkeeper, we know where he ends up. At the Leaky Cauldron, where he lives and owns and belongs. But Doris Crockford, we never hear really anything else about Doris Crockford. Now, she was kind of important in this scene in the sense that she goes up to shake Harry's hand at least a dozen times or so, and is so pleased to meet him and so excited. And unfortunately, it doesn't go on to tell us what happens to her afterwards. If she fights in the Wizarding War, if she dies, if she stays neutral, if she runs away. We don't know. We don't even know anything about her other than her name and the fact that she is infatuated with Harry. But I personally like to believe that she is still visiting the Leaky Cauldron on a daily basis and reminiscing to the time she met Harry Potter to anybody and everybody that will listen. Now let's flash forward a few days or so in the same point in time when Harry gets to go to Hogwarts for the very first time, and we see our very first enactment of everything the first years go through, from crossing the lake to the sorting. Now there are several young witches and wizards who are sorted during this sorting ceremony, most of whom we know what happens to, like Terry Boot, who joins Dumbledore's army, Draco Malfoy, Crabbe and Goyle, who become Death Eaters down the road, as well as several others who pick sides or don't pick sides. But there were a few names dropped that we never hear from again. For example, Mandy Brockhurst or Lisa Turpin. We never hear from them again. We don't know if they stayed and fought in the Battle of Hogwarts. We don't know if they died in the Battle of Hogwarts. We don't know if they were removed from school before the battle, after Voldemort had taken over, or after Snape had killed Dumbledore. We just don't know. And unfortunately, this article does not go on to tell us what happens to them. So why am I mentioning them? Well, to be honest, mostly I'm just confused and baffled as to why somebody would take the time to write this article and not at least try to drudge up or make up something that happened to these people to give us a little bit more content. I mean, they literally just touch on them, they tell their names to us, but they give us no further details. It's like a little bit of a tease, and I feel like they could have maybe spent a little extra time going into people we do know what happens to, or at least we know that they go through the series a little bit, we see them here and there, and then maybe tell us the final outcome. Like, what happened with Lavender Brown after the Battle of Hogwarts? Did she survive her attack on Fenrir Greenback? Because all we're told is that she showed feeble signs of life. Or Firenze, example, we see him in the first book, we see him in the fifth book, we see him in the sixth and the seventh books, and we know he fights personally inside Hogwarts during the battle, for most of the battle, even before the rest of the Centaurs join. And the last thing we see from Firenze, he's bleeding from his flank heavily in the Great Hall where everybody has converged for the final moments of the battle and after the battle. But does he survive? Do the centaurs allow him back into the forest and re-accept him as part of the herd? After all, they themselves did come and help fight alongside the wizards, so they can't really hold that against him anymore. So why don't we see these things? Personally, I don't know. I don't have the answers for you. I personally like to think that Lavender did survive her wounds, and that because Fenrir wasn't transformed, because it was not a full moon, she's similar to Bill Weasley, you know, heavily scarred but alive, not a true werewolf, but some contamination. And I like to think that Firenze also survived, because we lost so many people as it was during the Battle of Hogwarts, that it would be nice to hear that Firenze did survive his wounds and was accepted back into the Centaur herd. So guys, I know that this was not a very exciting video, or at least not a very informative video. I hope I at least entertained you with it. But it was one that I said I would do a sequel to, so I have done said sequel. I wish that there was more. I wish the article had put more effort and time into either finding things out, or at least telling us things about people that we might not necessarily know, or that JK had told us further down the road after the fact, after the books were written. Any of those scenarios would have been fine with me, or maybe just not done that section of the article and not make me have to make a silly video like this with really no explanation and just rambling to you guys endlessly. That's all I've got for you today, guys. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and share. And as always, stay safe and watch out for those Dementors.